Only a couple more editions of NFL Betting Blitz this year. This is a big, big day. We have the Final Four in the NFL Conference Championship games. We'll start off with the AFC, then we will move to the NFC. I am Gino alongside Erik from ETOF21 Sports. We've been here with you each and every week throughout the year. And now, Erik, I will say, nothing really surprising looking at these Final Four teams. Here, you and I were just talking a little bit about the Royal Rumble last night. It was a pretty formful Royal Rumble on the men's side. For the most part, in this bracket, we have the number 1 seeded Baltimore Ravens against the number 3 seeded Kansas City Chiefs. We have the number 1 seeded 49ers against the number 3 seeded Lions. So didn't have a whole lot of parity in the playoffs, but I feel like we're going to have some good matchups. These 4 teams have been 4 of the 6 best teams all throughout the year.
Yeah, as much as everyone says the NFL is wide open this year, all these teams finished top 3, so you really can't be that shocked that they're here. Obviously, one team is a 7-point dog, so they're, definitely the underdog going here, but the other 3 teams, you can make an argument for them to win it.
Yeah, and we're going to get into both of these games today. Remember, if you are in the state of Iowa, you can sign up for a DRF Sportsbook betting account. And you can use our promo code. I'm going to flash it right now across the bottom of the screen. If you use the promo code FAST300, it'll give you a $300 deposit match bonus, and it'll give you a $50 free bet credit. Erik and I will also talk some parlay play. That's a website where you can actually bet on props if you parlay them together, and you can have a lot of fun doing so. You can play parlays for like $1 or $2, all the way up to higher amounts. You can play for all sorts of different sports, and they give you tons of opportunities and options far as catches, points, but fantasy points, touchdowns, rushing yards, all sorts of different metrics and different wagers you can make that other sites don't have for you. So lots of opportunities on parlay play. Let's see how we turn those opportunities into some cash today. Erik, now let's start with the Chiefs at the Ravens. This one is now up to Baltimore -4.5 as we look at DRF Sportsbook betting lines here. So I can understand the number moving a little bit towards Baltimore. They have been so impressive in every single way. And last week in particular, the Chiefs, they beat up on a Buffalo team that was a little banged up. The week before, they beat up on a Miami team that's defense was depleted. Throughout most of this year, Kansas City's offense wasn't playing that well. In fact, last week, that was their best game of the year based on DVOA metrics. They only had to punt 1 time in that game. And they gained 7.7 yards per play compared to 4.7 for Buffalo. They had 8 plays of 20 yards or longer. Now, do you take that, Erik, as that was them being able to catch a defense that was depleted? Because that's one thing that's really hard. Or was it flipping a switch, right? Can Mahomes know that it's playoff time? We got to lock down a little bit more. We've seen great players do that. I don't know if you can flip a switch for a full game as much as maybe like a drive or 2, right? That's how I kind of think the switch gets flipped. So to me, I didn't have as strong of opinion about this game, but I think you did. You caught the number earlier. What do you do now if you didn't catch Baltimore at like -3.5? Do you play it now still at -4.5?
I still like the -4, -4.5. Look, I wouldn't surprise me if Baltimore wins this game by double digits. You look at it, Kelsey, he's been on a tear, had a great game last week, averaging for the season 6 receptions, 73 yards per game, but the Ravens are 8th DVOA defending the pass, defending the tight end, allowing only 42.3 yards per game. Ravens also have Kyle Hamilton, which is huge because he's able to drop in coverage and shadow Travis Kelsey. Another thing, looks like Humphreys is trending toward playing. You get him out there. Now he's shadowing Rice, and now you're relying on MVS and Hardman and crew to make plays. I don't think that is a path for the Chiefs to have success. Pacheco's been a beast, averaging 93 yards per game, 4.8 yards per carry. Ravens are elite against the run, 7th DVOA, allowing only 38 yards to the Texans. I think they're going to limit Pacheco. Another reason I like the Ravens is you have to be able to create pressure without blitzing.
He was banged up throughout a lot of the week. Pacheco.
Yeah, he's been banged up with his arm. And Tooney, who there's an interior left guard, is out.
And Willie Gay is also going to play, but he got injured last week, right?
Correct. Another reason I like the Ravens are you're able to create pressure without blitzing. That's what the Ravens are good at. They're able to rush the passer, create pressure without blitzing. That is huge. Next thing, Chiefs, 27th DVOA defending the run. Allen, 12 rushes for 72 yards, averaging 6 yards per carry. What are they going to do to stop Lamar? Chiefs average allowing 114.9 rushing yards per game, 18th most. Just had 186 yards rushed on them by the Buffalo Bills. I think the Ravens are going to run the ball, keep Harbaugh on the sideline, keep Mahomes on the sideline. Ravens are 7-1 ATS, playing a team with a winning percentage of 60% or more. I look at the injuries, look at the matchups. I like the Ravens here. I think the Ravens win big. I got it at 3. I'd still play at this 4.5.
Couple other impressive things to mention just on both sides here. Patrick Mahomes' record when trailing by 7+ points in the playoffs over the last 5 years, 8-1. The rest of the NFL is 11-53. It's just unbelievable. I like to mention some of these because win or lose, when they get here and they're able to accumulate some of these impressive statistics, they're just eye-opening. Now,
I also have a player.
I got a few too. Mahomes is 39-11 on the road. And one thing that's interesting, why they've been pretty good this year, Eric, their defense has carried them through a lot of the year. You know, they've been the second best defense as far as scoring is concerned. They're like a top 5 defense by almost all other metrics. They're just not quite as good of a defense as Baltimore is. They're extremely impressive. They held Houston to only 213 total yards last week. They're first in EPA per play. Chiefs are second. Baltimore's first in points allowed per game. Chiefs are second. The Houston Texans did not run one play inside of the 25-yard line against Baltimore last week. And Lamar, he feels like he's motivated this year. He sort of is playing like a guy with a chip on his shoulder after what happened last year and him sitting out and him maybe wanting to be treated a little bit differently than he has been over the last year and a half, just kind of feeling like he was disrespected. He just seems like he's got a focus right now that I don't remember seeing from him. He had 2 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, 100 rushing yards, and 100 passer rating with a 72% completion percentage. We see it with Mahomes. Allen can do this too. But Eric, when Lamar is on and he is controlling a game, it reminds me so much like when you can see a LeBron or someone like that on a basketball court and how they just can have complete control over the speed of everything, when they want to go, when they want to slow, the change of pace. He feels like he's playing on another level right now.
He is the MVP. You know, I mean, what he's able to do is absolutely insane. And he's able to make these DBs and linebackers who are phenomenal athletes look like you or I would on the football field.
And they're in position. They're doing everything by the book that they're supposed to do. You can have a game plan for Lamar. And when he does a quick shimmy juke, there's nothing you can do. You can be in the right spot, right there, form, tackle, ready to go. And that's what makes this guy so difficult. And, you know, Mahomes and Allen and some of the best that we're talking about. But in particular, there's just this intangible that Lamar has that nobody else really has. I just don't think we've ever seen a quarterback be able to run with the ability that he has. And why he's the MVP, why I completely agree with Erik too, it's not a bunch of hollow stats. He's got impressive stats, but this year they have 11 wins against teams with a winning record. They're 7-2 against teams that made the playoffs this year in the games Lamar started. That's an MVP. That's winning, and winning impressively. They've been beating up good teams. You got to give their coordinators credit. They have an offensive coordinator who came from college and a defensive coordinator who came from college, both of them, and they add something completely different to the mix here. Erik, this one hurts. As we say, Gino almost hit a homer in the Pegasus yesterday. I was alive in that race for a lot of money with the 6 in a lot of exotics. The pick 5 was going to pay about $4,500. I had it a couple times. The pick 4 was going to pay around $700. I had that one a couple times. I had some win money on Senior Buscador. That will go down as one of the most difficult ones for me because I don't think at any point I didn't think he was going by when he was moving. I thought he was going to blow right on by National Treasure. I know this is a football show, but when I got a chance to commiserate a little more about yesterday, I had to mention that one because that one's going to stick with me for a few weeks. That's going to be one of the harder ones to get the taste out of the mouth there. Erik, talk about how we're playing this game. You mentioned you have already locked in the Ravens, but you have some props for here too.
I got one. Gus Edwards over 41.5 yards rushing. Chiefs 27th DVOA defending the run, allowing 115 yards per game. Edwards has gone over this total 2 of 3, 3 of 5, 12 times this season. Last 5 games, not counting the Chargers game because that was a game where the Chiefs had a lot of people. These are the running backs. Cook 18 for 61, Mozart 8 for 33, Nixon 21 for 65, White 22 for 145, Harris 4 for 25. So 3 of the last 5 running backs have gone over this total in those 5 games. They have allowed 326 yards, 68.5 yards per game, 4.5 yards per carry. Look, I think the Ravens will lean on the run, lean on Edwards, keeping Mahomes on the sideline. So I'm betting the over 41.5. Also, some books allow you to ladder. I ladder this all the way up to $110.
The play for me is I really don't have a strong stance one way or the other in this game. I could honestly see either thing happening. And I agree with you. If I were to pick one likely result of this game, I might say Baltimore wins by 10. But I could absolutely see Mahomes right now. He also seems I think he seems just a little bit bothered by this whole Patrick Mahomes on the road thing. I think he's like, guys, I can play on the road. I'm good on the road. Just because we haven't had to win a bunch of playoff games on the road doesn't mean I can't. So it almost seems like that bothers him when it gets brought up to him. The other day, he even said, I had to play the Super Bowl in Tampa against Tampa, which is like, that's a road game. But I am really glad these are 2 of the teams that we get in a matchup like this. This is what you want. And it's fascinating because it does feel like with the different conferences, not that these are 2 teams that are better than the other 2 at all, or that the other 2 can't beat them, but just from a quarterback standpoint, you feel like this one's kind of fun because you've got Mahomes and you've got Lamar, who have been 2 of the most proven quarterbacks over the last few years and 2 of the absolute best, slightly different reasons. And then on the other side, you have 2 guys who, for completely different reasons, nobody thought were going to be in that game. Goff was discarded. And then you've got Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy. So it's really fascinating, these 4 quarterbacks. As good luck. Anyone playing the Chiefs and the Ravens? Erik and I, both leaning Ravens. Erik already locked that one in. I'm not necessarily going to lock in one side or the other, but we also have a couple props that we'll be playing along the way. Parlay Play, use the promo code NFL Betting Blitz when you're over at Parlay Play. Okay. Erik, anything else you want to mention about game 1 today?
No, hopefully it's a good one. I mean, we got to cherish these Sundays. We only have a couple more left.
3 football games left, the 2 today. Then we get a week off and then the big one in a few weeks. Erik, the 49ers will be hosting your Lions. How cool is it for the Lions that they are here? And you know what is really cool is that one of the things that I think can help you and your Lions fans exercise some of the demons was you were supposed to be good this year and you were, right? That's a good start, because at the very beginning of the year, when we were looking at a lot of the over-unders and divisional odds, it felt so weird seeing the Lions as the team to beat in the division. We kept thinking, are you serious? Wait, the Lions are going to win around 9 or 10 games. This just feels weird having this conversation until we see it. Nothing fluky about it at all. Nothing fluky about this team at all. They won more playoff games in the last 8 days than they did in the previous 66 years. They are 22-7 over their last 29 games. And I said this to you the other day, so I'll have to use my joke twice right now. That's that last 29 games, including playoffs. Erik, we've never been able to say including playoffs before about the Lions when we had stats. So that's cool, man. And I'm happy that you got here, but now it's not over yet. And you don't feel like you got here as a fluke. You look at this matchup and this team. This is a winnable matchup for the Lions, I think, even as around a touchdown underdog. This is a team that right off the top, your coach is a very aggressive coach who is going to go for it quite often. On the flip side, you have a coach like Shanahan, and we saw that cautious approach last week. Before halftime, they had the ball with about 4 minutes left. He did not get aggressive at all. They could have tried to go down and score a touchdown. He was so worried about giving the ball back to Green Bay that they plodded along. They ended up having to kick a long field goal, and that got blocked. And that could have been the difference in the game. If Green Bay catches one of the 2 interceptions that are thrown at them, if Green Bay doesn't miss a 41-yard field goal themselves, that could have been the reason why. And that's one of the things I'm isolating in this game, wondering if the Lions are just going to be able to get a couple extra possessions with the way that Dan Campbell and your Lions team play the game. They're aggressive. They all know it. The quarterback knows it. The lineman knows it. Your running backs know it. Your receivers know it. If it's 4th and 2 or 3, you're going for it. If it's 4th and 5 and you're inside the 40, you're probably going for it. And on the flip side, San Francisco just has not done that. And I always get nervous with the 49ers in playoffs in spots like this when they have to cover with margin because Shanahan doesn't coach that way. For a guy who's a fantastic play caller and play designer, very similar to McVay, he gets tight, man, in these big games, and he doesn't know when to kick, when to go for it, or should we ramp up the tempo a little bit? I don't love playing him with margin.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is I was talking to my buddy today, and his thing is, let's look back at Shanahan when elimination games. Championship and Super Bowl. They just haven't been that good. You know what I mean? Like there's a 28-3 thing in the Super Bowl. Last year, like they were up. They were up in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs.
The Chiefs double digits.
Yeah. The year the Rams won it, they were beating the Rams. Yep. The year they went with the Falcons and he was the OC, they were up big, barely.
That was the 20. Yeah, that was. Yep.
There's these things where he's just in these championship games. Just I hate to use the term quivering up, but that's what he's doing.
It's not a coincidence, and they've shown the stat. He was 0-31 when his teams were down by 5 points going into the fourth quarter. They kicked a field goal right off the bat, so they were only down 4 last week, and then they got that stat out of the way. But they have not been a team that comes back when they're down. The template is exactly what Green Bay tried to do. If you're the Lions, can you win the toss? You go get the ball, I say you go get the ball, and you try to get up on them early. Like we saw last week. Can you score, stop them, get the ball back, get another score? Can you get up by 2 scores early? Obviously, everybody wants to get up on their opponent by 2 scores, right? But some teams that throw the ball really well or that have the ability to come from behind, you don't really worry about being down by 10 or 14 that much early. But with this 49ers team, that might be something that they're not used to. And that may make life really difficult on them. The one matchup I really, really think the Lions will have major success in is running the ball against the 49ers defense. The Lions are number 4 in rushing EPA on the year. The 49ers are number 25 in defensive rushing EPA. And in rushing success rate, the 49ers are even worse. They're 27. That means only 5 teams in the league were worse this year at stopping the run down to down. And the reason why I read a lot of write-ups. We've talked about some of the way we do our prep work. I will sit there on Sundays, watch the games, watch as many as I can, take some notes. Then on Mondays and Tuesdays, I'll do my rewatches of each game individually, take some notes there. I will read some recaps, from places that we talk about, like the DVOA stuff. NFL.com does some good recaps. I like to read some of the game recaps to see if there are any like stats or some things that I missed. And then I'll match it with what my notes say and what my eye test will say. And I'll put them all together. And for so many things I'm reading, I don't think people realize the 49ers run defense is not good. I don't. Because people will use counting stats, Erik, a lot of the time. They'll say the 49ers allowed some of the fewest rushing yards this year, or fewest rushing yards per game, or they allowed some of the least rushing touchdowns. That's a very bad way of looking at it, because how many games were they up big or up early, and the team that they were playing could not keep running the ball? And when you play bad teams, that's what happens. I don't think that's a relevant stat anymore now, because these teams they're playing against, all three of them, between whether it be the Lions, and if they win next week, either the Ravens or the Chiefs, all these teams right now can run the ball really well. You have to be able to slow that down.
Yeah. Which is big. Part of my thing is, you mentioned the run. If they're able to run the ball, we need to look at cause and effect. What does that cause the 49ers to do? That means they have to bring Warner up from covering Laporta to stop the run. Effect, Laporta has a better matchup. So they may be able to limit, stop the run, whatever term you want to do for the Lions, but then that opens stuff up for Laporta, who's important because he's second in third down passes, second in targets, reception, yards, red zone targets. So if Warner is forced to go up against the line, that is going to be huge for Detroit. Another thing we need to look at is the Debo factor. Yes, I know Debo is going to play, but this team struggles when he doesn't produce. This is this season. A stat from Matt Jacob on X. Very good at giving out stats. If you guys aren't following him, give him a follow. 49ers 1-4 when Debo gets 2 targets or fewer, with their only win coming last week against the Packers in a game they should have lost. So even when Debo is out there, if he's not a vital part of the offense, they struggle. In games when Debo starts and finishes 10-3 ATS, when he doesn't start or leaves early, 0-5 ATS this season. I know people are hyping CMC, but Debo is the key to this offense. If Debo can't go, that puts more pressure on CMC and the Lions' run defense. Lions are the best team DVOA, stopping the run. Then you're forcing Ayuk and Kittle to make plays. And look, I know both those guys are good. Kittle's one of the best. Ayuk's an up-and-comer. But that is what you want to do if you're Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator for the Lions. You want to have those second tier, I hate using that term, those guys beat you. Road Dogs in the conference championship, 58% ATS, 1 seeds overall in the playoffs, 44.4%. Look, you mentioned it. You can run on this 49ers team. 15th DVOA defending the run, allowing only 4.2 yards per rushing attempt. Last week, the Packers were able to rush for $136 last 3 games. 49ers are allowing 103 yards per game. The Lions have the 4th best rushing attack per DVOA, averaging.
And watching it, Erik, didn't it match the eye test last week? Aaron Jones was getting whatever he wanted.
Yeah, honestly. Aaron Jones was just going up and down the field, literally up and down the field against him. Lions 4th best rushing attack per DVOA, averaging 132 yards per game. Lions averaging 4.5 per attempt, 5th best in the league. Lions, if they're able to have success running the ball, this is going to put less pressure on Garrett Goff because they're going to be ahead of the sticks.
What do we know about James Houston, too, the health of him for you? Is he playing today?
We have made an announcement. They did say Hayden Hooker, their backup quarterback, is limited with a toothache, though.
Okay, so, well, that's some big news. That's some big news.
I mentioned the whole thing about Laporta, why this running is important, because it's going to force Warner and everything. Already mentioned that. Won't recap that. Brown also is a great matchup. in 3 wide receiver sets. He's going to be lined up in the slot. That means he'll be matched up against Lenore, who has allowed the 6th most yards per game to opposing wide receivers. So I think the Lions will have success throwing the football. Plus, the weather is perfect. 64, sunny, 9-mile-per-hour wind. This is huge because the Lions have played an outside game since the 12th of December. So look, I took the Lions. I got them, and you know what I'm going to do right now? I'm going to put a little bit on that money line. Call me a homer, my friend, but I'm doing it right now. I'm putting a little bit on that money line.
No, I already did with you. I told you last week I locked them in right away. I looked at this 49ers team too. While they've been a really good team, once they get, kind of reminds me, and I say this as a Dodger fan, it kind of reminds me of what's happened with the Dodgers recently. The way they've built their teams. Well, they're these good, really good regular season teams, and that's what you want to be. You just want to get yourself there, and then when you get yourself into the playoffs, you're in the mix and you have a shot. And then things can happen, things get weird, but you just want to get yourself there. But every time they get themselves here, it just feels like they're missing one small thing that they need to compete with some of these teams. And let me explain that a little bit better. So the 49ers, their roster, most teams don't spend a lot of money on running backs, don't spend a ton on tight ends, and they don't spend on linebackers, right? Those are position groups that you feel like you can find guys valuable all throughout the draft, or you can sign guys that are capable and you don't have to spend as much. Normally, you'll see teams spending on quarterbacks, wide receivers, secondary, offensive line. Well, they're dead last in quarterback spending. Think about it. They have Purdy, so they don't spend a lot of money on quarterback. So if you do have some quarterback mistakes in some of these games, how can you be mad when you're dead last in spending in quarterback, when you're not spending for a better version of a quarterback? They've been very lucky what they've got from Brock Purdy. Most teams don't have a guy like Brock Purdy that's been able to contribute the way they found. So that's been very beneficial for them. Also, they rank 20th in offensive line spending. This offensive line isn't fantastic, Erik. They kind of fly under the radar because Trent Williams is so freaking good. He might be the best offensive lineman in the whole league, and he's able to kind of weathered a lot of storms, and he fills a lot of gaps. But Hutchinson's going to be lining up on the opposite side, and if they can get any other pressure from a guy like a Houston or someone else, that could, right now, Hutchinson is feeling it. He's in one of those zones right now where over the last 4 games, and he has 8 sacks, multiple in all 4 of them. He had incredible pressure rate. He led the league in how many pressures he had in 16 games throughout the year. Super, super impressive stuff. Let's go Lions, man. Locked him in, and I got him some money line too. And my parlay play for today, Erik, I have 3 props that I put together. For the Chiefs, I'm leaning on Rice. I don't know if I gave the statistic, but in the last few weeks, Mahomes has really been focusing on Rice and Kelsey. You can tell he's big, important games. He's going to the guys he trusts now. You don't want to go to Mecole Hardman. We saw what happened last week. I think everybody in the world couldn't believe it when Valdez-Scantling had a couple big plays last week. Everybody was expecting him to drop those. But Rice has been excellent. So I'm leaning on Rice. I played Rice more 8 receiving targets because I think that's what we're going to get. I think we're going to get a lot of Rice. We're going to get a lot of Kelsey. And the template for them, they could be down late in the game. They could get 3 or 4 targets to Rice on one drive if you're down trying to come back. So Rice targets for me. The other 2 were in the second game. I went Amon-Ra St. Brown receiving yards over 86.5. Just talked about the secondary where San Francisco is like 22nd in secondary spending. I've never watched them and thought they had a lockdown secondary. They are super beatable with number 1 wide receivers. And then on the flip side, we have seen how bad the Lions have been against deep field threats the last few weeks. I think Ayuk is a little sneaky. everyone's excited about Debo. Oh, there wasn't any injury designation for him this week. I still have a feeling he could get banged up and maybe not even play this full game. That happens a lot with him. And whether or not that does, I still think Ayuk is someone who's going to get a really nice matchup. He's been very good all year, super under the radar. He doesn't get mentioned when you talk about this team. It goes McCaffrey and Debo and Kittle, and people just sort of forget about Ayuk, who's also really, really good, Eric. So I went Ayuk over the 78.5 receiving yards. So I went Ayuk and St. Brown over receiving yards. I went Rice over targets.
I like it. I got greedy. I did a 6-teamer. Got really greedy. First one, we're going David Montgomery to have over 8.5 fantasy points. I think he gets in the end zone. I actually bet him at plus 170 score a touchdown. If he gets that 8.5 fantasy points, he should hit. Already mentioned my love for Gus Edwards. Played is over 45. I think Kyle Hamilton is huge today. His sacks, his tackles, and tackles solo and assisted are 5.5. I played the over. I think Hamilton's going to be able to limit Kelsey. I played the under 63.5 for Kelsey. Also, I know Gabe Davis's nickname's Big Gabe Dave. Here's a fun fact.
That's great.
Every game that against the Chiefs that Nelson Aguilar has played against, he scored a touchdown. So I played him over 16.5 rushing yards. I think he's going to be able. I think, he's a field stretcher. I think they hit him on one big play. And I already mentioned St. Brown, 86.5 yards.
I got to tell you, though, my guy, Big Game James Worthy, who's on the Spectrum Sportsnet on the Lakers channel, loves to smoke those cigars. He's just rolling his eyes right now, hearing about Big Game. Big Game Gabe is Big Game James Worthy, one of the all-time great Lakers. That's a good one, though. I hadn't heard the Big Game Gabe one. I like that.
So, yeah, I played the 6. It's look, I'm going to swing for the fences here. Why not? I got a free in here for $25. I'm going to swing at it for 25. So
I want to go Montgomery on this one, Eric. First touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, I would go Montgomery and Gus Edwards. Those are the two I would do.
Those are who Eric's leaning on. I like Montgomery. I think in a pure matchup standpoint, right? Last week, the Lions played Tampa. Tampa is very good at stopping the run. Tampa is much better at stopping the run than San Francisco is. And in particular, right up the gut, because they have Vita Vea, who is the best run stopper in the league. The dude is mammoth. He can take out 3 guys when you're trying to block or when you're trying to run. He makes life so difficult for you. And what I loved watching that game last week, Ben Johnson, your offensive coordinator, he didn't say, "Oh, hey, well, we're going to have to keep running right up the middle. It's going to be, we're going to break them." He said, "Look, that's their strength. So you know what we're going to do in this game? We're going to make an adjustment. We don't have to be a one-dimensional team. Let's put Gibbs in the game. Let's get him involved. Let's use him outside a little bit more. Let's get him in space." That's exactly what they did, Eric. And I loved seeing that adjustment. And now, looking at the way this game shapes up, this should be a much more run between the tackles game for the Lions. The 49ers aren't quite as good right up the gut. That is one of the best ways to neutralize pass rushers that want to come at you. Guys like Bosa that want to come after you, that get pumped up, that get that extra excitement, and then they get a sack, and then they're flying all over the place, and then they're high-fiving everyone, and then it gets contagious. Best way to keep those guys quiet is run the ball. Run the ball. Run the ball right at them. It's a totally different experience, and I think that's what's going to happen in this game.
You know what? And also in that game, Campbell's not going to – he's going to take more chances, and that's the wild factor. The worst case scenario for me is early on, it's 4th and short. They're down a quick 7-0, 10-0, whatever. And it's on the 35, 36 of Detroit.
That's your nightmare. You've said it a few times.
And it gets stopped, and then the wheels just fall off.
And then you're like chasing the whole game. If
that happens, I will say this. If the Lions do get down 14-17, nothing quick, I'll probably bet them live just because of Shanahan question. I'll take the live spread on them.
his success there, and the Lions can absolutely come back. And I agree with you, though. It's amazing because you go from being a 6-7 point favorite to now you're a 6-7 point underdog just in the swing of one game, So the dynamic does feel way different when you're favored at home to where you can't help it. We're all human. You feel tighter in that situation. You just want to win that game. You just want to get through that game that you're supposed to win. Now, it almost feels like, in a weird way, there's no pressure on the Lions to me.
Yeah.
Because it's not that you weren't supposed to get here, but you're not really supposed to win this game. And now the 49ers, for them, if they don't make the Super Bowl this year, then you got to start having a conversation about them and Shanahan, because I was saying, it's like the Dodgers where, okay, you're there every year. You're in like the Final Four every year, but what's the reason why you can't win? What's the reason why you're in some of these games and you're right there, but you can't put it all together? And that this is, I think, 5 out of 6 years in the conference championship for the 49ers and no Super Bowls along that stretch.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's one of those things. There's a million teams that would just absolutely die to have
be in their spot, right?
But them, that's not what they want. You know what I mean?
No.
They want to be a championship team.
And their roster is built like it, right? Yep. Their roster has the talent. They have a top coach. They, maybe they'll think they need to upgrade a little bit at quarterback, but it's funny that we're saying this when a month ago, Brock Purdy was the MVP favorite.
Yeah.
So now we're saying they got to upgrade at quarterback after, it's amazing. And we have a fascinating 2 games ahead of us today on a great sports Sunday. Erik, buddy, thanks so much, man. All year long, we've been able to. This year, I had a tougher year, I think, than in a couple of our years past, just based on schedule with Milo, my son. He got sick a couple times. We had to change some school stuff. I actually started doing a little bit of work for different places. You and I got sick different times, all this stuff. But through all of it, man, we were able to work with each other quite a bit, help each other out as much as possible. And this was probably one of our tougher years because you and I are such schedule-oriented guys. We love to stay on that same routine. We know we're going to be here at this time. We're done here 5 minutes, and then we get home and we start this. And the last couple months haven't been able to be quite like that. So I really appreciate you always helping out, man, because I know if you and I had it our way every week, certain time, 9 a.m., boom, 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 we'd be there. Sometimes life won't let that happen, but we did. I think we did a really good job of locking in and making it through all the big games this year.
Yeah, it's been a good year. It's going to be a little weird next Sunday.
Oh, I know. Well, next Sunday will not be a football Sunday, but in 2 weeks, it'll be the big one. And Erik and I will have plenty of coverage and props and all sorts of fun stuff leading into the big game then. And then our focus will shift. We'll start talking a little basketball, some college with March Madness not far away, some NBA. Like to see my Lakers looking a little bit better as of late. Had a fun game last night where they picked up a victory. Last night, Erik, at one point, I had the Royal Rumble on. I was watching my USC Trojans get their ass kicked by the Bruins and the Lakers also on. So I was screen to screening it with those 3 all at the same time there. That's a lot of fun when you're sitting back and you got the iPad, the laptop, and the phone.
2 late basketball bets, they just were dead. So I was able to focus all on the Royal Rumble. So
I want to get a couple of these comments before we get out of here. Erik, are we adding Missouri to the no bet list now?
No, not yet.
They
should have won that game. Like they should have won. Obviously, they're getting 6.5, 7, lost by 8. That was just a great spot. I'll probably bet them again because that's one of those teams. Like they just need one win. Like them, and they've been one of the most unluckiest teams. They played all these top teams in the SEC tough. That's one of the teams. As soon as they can just get some stuff to go their way, they're just going to go on a run because they're not used to winning.
They're going to string a few together. Well, Ohio State. Bobby Thomas wants to know.
Yeah. I have no idea what was that. I mean, Northwestern basically plays 6 guys. They're coming off an overtime win against Illinois. 3 guys played over 40. Every starter played over 30, and your one bench guy played 20. And Ohio State just completely no-showed. So, I mean, it was the great spot. I mean, coming off being Illinois, who's a top 10 team, and you have Purdue on deck. Now you have Ohio State sandwiched in the middle. I'll play that bet all the time. But yeah, Ohio State looked like it was a team that just hit a top 10 win with Purdue on deck, not Northwestern.
And then we got this was in response to if the 49ers lose today. We will see big roster moves instead of coaching changes. Some D-line, improve the O-line, get another playmaker on the outside, maybe trade Kittle could be the play if they lose today. Yeah, it is one of those things where the difference, the margin can sometimes be so slim, right? And it's not fair, Eric, because that's why you and I do what we do. It's why we handicap the games like we do. It's why we rewatch them, because sometimes the better team doesn't win a game. Yeah. Because sometimes the margin is so small, and winning and losing is the difference between keeping your job. And that's not always right, like the best way to gauge something just off of wins and losses. But when it becomes a pattern, when it's the same sort of exit every year, you feel like you can't just keep rolling the same ball out there and doing it over again, right? You have to make some adjustments, and this is what
I mean. Kittle, that's actually a pretty smart comment. Like trading Kittle, that's
because you get a lot out of that, right? You trade him, you get a couple pieces, you get assets moving forward. Man, I'm pumped. These are some good games on tap today. I hope that the Lions make it for you, man. I really, really do. Erik, you're a hugger? I didn't realize you're a Bailey fan.
I'm Team Bailey all the way.
Okay. You know what? I will say I've warmed up quite a bit to Bailey over the last 5-7 years.
Bailey all the way.
Everything I see of Bailey or I watch of Bailey that's off screen, I like her even more. She's such a cool person just to like hear her talk, and she's so funny, and she's obviously a wrestling fan. She's got a good head on her shoulders. So here's what I think we're going to get, Erik, coming off of last night. Cause I actually had Bailey in our Royal Rumble pool. Shout out to me. Cause I wasn't able to win the 15 grand with Senior Buscador earlier in the day, but I got the $100 for the Royal Rumble pool. So good to go on that one. In the next couple of weeks, she's going to act like she's going to pick Rhea. Her own team, something's going to happen with them. They're going to get mad on EO. She's going to pick EO. And I think what's going to happen at WrestleMania, I think we're going to get the Bailey entrance like the old Bailey with her old song and the big wacky waveable and flaming arm waving tube man. I think we're going to get like babyface Bailey with a huge WrestleMania entrance like the old Bailey was, coming out hugging everyone. I don't know if she'll completely go back to that character, but that's my long shot prediction for WrestleMania. And Erik, I hope you're out there sitting front row so she can come give you a big hug. You'll take one.
Oh, I mean,
you'll take it. I know some of Erik's got crushes on her. Is it Chance or Carter? Katana Chance, Carter, Caden Carter. She's one that you've always thought was cute, and I remember those two at least. So Bobby Thomas, smooth Bobby Thomas, he knows. Folks, Bobby, let's make some money. I hate the Lakers, sports facts, all of you guys and gals out there. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. When you are watching the shows and you comment on the shows, it makes the shows better. It does. It makes it way more interactive. Erik and I love to think a little bit and have to ask you questions or have to answer questions. We love to hear from you, some of your bets. And then it makes us think a little bit more too. So to all of you who come and hang out with us in the chats, thanks so much. We really appreciate it. And we hope we'll see you again in a few weeks for Super Bowl Sunday. And we hope you'll come hang out with us when we do some basketball shows as well, because we'll do some basketball shows here and there. Bobby Thomas, good luck, buddy. Erik, let's go Lions, man. Let's bite some kneecaps. Let's roar.
I'm starting to get a little nervous.
I was going to say, getting that tickle in the belly right now. It's going to start coming soon.
I'm going to dive into a deep clean of my plates, try to distract myself, maybe hop on the treadmill for a little bit.
There you go.
Get some distractions going. So
good luck, everyone. Have a fantastic Sunday. Good luck in all your wagers, and we'll be talking to you again real soon.